Life as Ceremony shares personal stories, interviews with inspirational souls, and practical wisdom to help you reconnect with yourself and spirituality. Welcome back to another episode of Life as Ceremony. We have Jaime Zajac joining us. She is an intuitive channel. She offers incredible one-on-one readings, and she's the host of the Magnetic Soul podcast. Thank you for joining us, Jaime.
Thanks so much for being here, Sam. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm super excited as well. Before we jump into our discussion around developing and strengthening intuition and how that can help us live in alignment with our truth, um, if you've been listening to Life is Ceremony already, you'll know that we start our guests off with a little bit of rapid fire and some this or that questions.
Uh,
Jaime, are you ready?
I'm ready. But my brain, like I'm pregnant, so it's like my brain's not firing at like a rapid speed. So
Oh,
like this
that's
should be
okay.
interesting.
This should be interesting. It's okay. You are allowed to pause and think about them as well.
Okay. We're
Uh,
not on like a timed thing, like game.
no,
Okay.
totally. And there's no
Cool.
prizes or anything. It's
Okay. Okay.
it's pretty low pressure, I promise. Ocean or mountains?
Ocean.
Ocean.
Ooh, yeah, a bit of both, but ocean.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I
Depends
want to,
which ocean though.
okay, wait, I have one. This isn't on my list, but what about just because I know you just moved?
Uh-huh.
Ocean or lakes?
Oh, both for different reasons. Both for
Okay.
different reasons. Water in general, really since like this is so off topic, but on topic. I never thought I could leave the ocean because I'm so connected to the ocean,
Mhm.
but there's something really, really powerful about the lake as well. And you and I grew
Mhm.
up on lakes, so
Yeah.
but a different ocean. Like I like the clear blue water ocean and oceans
Yes.
of like Hawaii and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But there's something so powerful about a lakes.
Totally. Love
Yeah.
it. Okay. And I can't wait to chat more about your move later.
Yeah.
Sunrise or sunset?
Oh, I mean, I love sunset, but it's so funny you just said that because sunrise, and this is just me. I always feel like I have to explain everything.
No, I love
Depends
it.
where I'm at. Realistically, I wake up more earlier and I go to bed earlier now. But it was so wild because this morning I was like, I need to go be by the mountains as the sun's rising and by the lake. And I just love that moment when the sun's just rising, when there's pink. You know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about?
I
Like
know
the pink.
exactly what you're talking
And
about.
there's like, I'm like, wow, this only happens for like a split second, but is the most powerful thing
Yeah.
to witness that. And I just love the colors of both. So both for different reasons, I guess, but sunset.
Yes. No, I'm so glad you shared that. And I can't remember the exact words in this moment, but an author who I love, Richard Wagamese, has like he wrote something really beautiful about that exact moment that the sun is rising in terms of like the spiritual realm and relating it to the in-between space between our inhale and our exhale.
Mm.
And it was really beautiful. And I wish I had more to say about that right now. I'll try to find it. I can't even
I mean,
remember which book I read it in, but
that in itself is enough. And
yeah.
even like where you're at, like when you're on vacation and you're like, there's something so powerful about watching the sunrise from where
Hmm.
you are. Like right now, Hawaii is coming to mind. Like the sunrises there are just so magical and it
Hmm.
connects you to something so much bigger than yourself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
know exactly what you mean. Yeah. I think people listening also know what we mean. And it's
Yeah,
hard to describe, but it's a felt experience. Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
I love how we've been through like two questions on this or that. If this is any indication of how this podcast interview is gonna go. Okay. Dogs or cats?
Oh, dogs. I mean,
Dogs. Yeah.
dogs. Yeah.
Jamie has a beautiful dog named Leo.
I do, but randomly, Sam, you're gonna think I'm crazy. I out of nowhere want a cat, and Nova, my daughter, wants a
Really?
cat so bad. It's the
Really?
weirdest thing. Yeah, I don't
Oh
know
my
why.
gosh.
Yeah,
Would you get Nova a kitty though? You
I
should.
would, but Leo would not be pumped on it. So we have to.
Really?
Yeah, he's. I don't know how he'd feel about a cat
Aw.
in the house, but we'd have to like warm him up to the situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know this for sure, but I feel like Chief would love a cat. Like he would like look at it like a friend and be best friends. Like I almost want to get a cat just so my dog can have a cat, which is like a little crazy. not crazy, and I
Not
think they'd be
crazy.
BFF. But anyways, when you're talking about Nova wanting a cat, when I was little, all I wanted was a cat, and I asked for one every Christmas, and I just think, yeah. Anyways,
Maybe this Christmas you get your inner child a cat.
my inner child cat. Now I'm over cats, big animal person, but like I just see myself with six dogs, so that's what we're going for. Okay, do you have a celebrity crush?
Oh my gosh, this is hard. I feel like it depends. Like it's like through the seasons. Who would be my celebrity crush right now?
Oh, she's got one for every season. I love
Really? Like it
this.
depends. For a while it was oh, what's his name? From Big Little Lies. Do you know who I'm talking about? He's the
No.
Swedish actor. What's his name? I don't know his name, but someone listening to this is gonna like
Know
it's
who
gonna
you're talking
irritate
about?
them
Yeah.
because they're not gonna be able to like say it out loud to me who it is, and they're gonna
They're
know.
probably screaming at. They're like, it's
Yeah.
spelled. Yeah.
It's anyways, he's so good looking. And then I mean Harry Styles.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Love it. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing with us.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought this would be a fun rapid fire one specific for you because
Mhm.
Jamie and I are both from Winnipeg. So, what is one of your favorite things to do in Winnipeg?
Oh, be at the lake.
Yeah. And where's the
But that's
lake?
not really Winnipeg, but yeah, be
Yeah.
at the
My favorite thing to do in Winnipeg is be outside of Winnipeg.
yeah, to drive out of the city.
And no, but fair. Like, I mean, even in Manitoba, there's so many beautiful lakes and yeah. Awesome.
I think so many people, like when you take pictures when you're at the lake, especially where like Victoria Beach, where I go, people think that you're in a tropical environment when you're not.
Mm-hmm. True.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Okay, last rapid fire one is do you have any words to live by or favorite quotes? It could even be what feels relevant and top of mind for you lately.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes, 100%. I have to like go into this because there's like so much that I feel like they're even just quotes. I feel like I even have this is a tough time to ask me about quotes into my memory because I feel like it's just maybe something that's come through for myself of or just in general, like maybe it's like a message that's channeled through of like just really dreaming bigger and allowing yourself to expand into that. I don't know, just going after your dreams and really being true to yourself in some way. I don't
Mhm.
actually have a quote.
Yeah.
I'm sure afterwards I'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's what I should have said." But I don't know. I just think that I don't really have a quote right now.
I think
Good question.
dream big is enough.
Yeah, dream big, go after it, like really being true to yourself and having that promise for yourself and going after it and not being afraid to go for it. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like
Mhm.
step your comfort zone and just really be true to yourself. And because it's like things like no one's going to it's like you only owe yourself to do that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's time that we all stop living for what other people want and start really being true to ourselves. And why do we have to wait until we're like our dreams in like 20 years to have that thing? It's like we can have that a lot sooner if we just
Mhm.
really believe in ourselves
Mhm.
ultimately, even if no one else does. And I think that's been like a huge lifelong lesson for me is like always ultimately I've always had this like belief in myself at
Mhm.
some point, and at times I don't, but it's like I've
Mhm.
always had that belief and that trust, and it overrides everything to go after it beyond what anyone may think or say, and just doing the thing because that in itself is like I don't know, it's the most rewarding experience is to no longer
Mhm.
live life worried about what other people are going to think about you and
Mhm.
instead just being so true to yourself and loving yourself because so often we walk through this life without that self-love. And I think that the more that we can I'm gonna start crying. I don't know why. But it's like the more that we can really connect with our own hearts and like, wow, maybe you've been through challenging experiences in life and like look where you're at and celebrate yourself now because stop chasing like the next thing and living in that constant chase It's easier
Mhm.
said than done, and really like coming back to like, wow, look at where you were maybe even a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and like look at where you are now and be in celebration of that. And maybe that's a
Mhm.
message we all need in going into 2025 is like, wow, a lot of people have made it through some challenging times and some difficulty. And whether that be like physical things or just internal stuff that we go through in life, these
Mhm.
internal processes and limitations. And it's like, wow, look at where you are now and celebrate yourself. Because
Mhm.
if not everyone's connected or like in that awareness of like your spiritual self or your the
Mhm.
spiritual love that's around you, your ancestors, whatever it may be, but it's like everybody's so proud of you and is rooting for you. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so can we
Mhm.
really connect to that and know that we have such a huge force behind us, even if we feel alone on our path?
Mhm.
There's so much spiritual support behind us and our ancestors, and you have such an ancestor connection. But it's like if we can really lean into that support when we feel alone, that there's something bigger that's guiding us forward, and they want you to win. They want you to win. They're rooting for you, and it's like, can we just like tap into that remembrance of who we are and why we came, and the limitless possibilities that we have. Anyways, sorry.
Wow. Yeah. No, I can't wait to listen back to this and write down all the quotes and words to live by that you just shared with us, including like dream big. Also, like look at where you are today and celebrate that. There were so many like golden nuggets in what you just shared with us. And I do agree with you. I think that's a message a lot of us need to hear. I felt emotional just listening to you share it. The piece that
Yeah.
really stuck with me was like, the support that you have behind you and they want you to win. I think we
Yeah.
forget that. I think in our world, sometimes like it really feels like people aren't rooting for us or they're
Yes.
looking for criticism. And, sometimes it's in our head, sometimes it is true. But at the same time, even when it is true, think of all the people who want you to win. And that number is going to outweigh anyone who might be in the background being critical, you know?
And focus on that. You know what I mean? Like, too often we
Absolutely.
focus on, like, the critics or what someone may think, or maybe there's a troll, like, whatever it may be, it's like, focus on and a lot of it's our own stuff, right? We
Yeah.
have the worst things that we think of other people because maybe past conditioning, and when you're a
Hmm.
child, you had, whatever it may be. But it's like if we can just really embrace that, because there's so many times when we may feel alone on our paths, or like we're the only ones, or there's no one there to help us, and can you just like sit back and be like, yeah, actually I do have a lot of people, I have a lot of support behind me, even if I don't feel it in the physical realm of like people.
Hmm.
The most important thing you can do is like dig into that belief within yourself and be like,
Hmm.
I've got my back, and that's
Yeah.
actually enough. And if I can imagine it, that there is a whole spiritual force behind me that wants me to win. And so yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us, Jamie. I actually am going to listen back to this and write some of those down. They're really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not really, I feel like I'm like, I should have a quote to live by. That's a good thing. That it's just whatever. This is it.
Whatever. This is it. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So, one of the things I really want to chat with you about today is your journey, especially in regards to your intuition. Kind of, I hope it's okay for me to share this on the podcast. You're pretty
Of
open, but
course.
like Jamie and I met in Winnipeg. Jamie worked at a bank at the time, and now Jamie's an intuitive channel. So tell me how you go from doing the 9 to 5, you're working at a bank, and now you do channeled readings for people and so much more that you offer and share. But yeah, take us over that bridge from who you were to who you are now.
Like it's wild to me still to this day, because that like I always say to people, like, I would have told you you're absolutely crazy if you would have thought that I would be doing this work.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way. If someone told me that, it would have been like, you're crazy. That's definitely not. And what really led to that is, I was just, obviously at some point in our lives, when we're not, when our soul wants to be in another path or in the true path for us, there's, things that can happen to get us onto that path. And so for me, I grew up there's a lot of dysfunction, a lot of family trauma that I had to work through. And at the time, was working through for the bank and actually for an investment advisor. And I was just living, a life that I was drinking and going out. I was in my 20s. It was like, all of that, you know, the regular 20s stuff. Or it's even 30s, whatever, it doesn't matter when that is, but, and I just went through such I just remember, like, that winter was the darkest winter of my life, like, it
Mm,
was so hard, I didn't even wanna wake up in the day, like, I just was at a really dark night of the soul, like, a dark place before there was Instagram accounts being like, this is a dark night of the soul," or,
mhm,
10 signs are awakening, this is, like, way before that, and
mm,
that's when I started to I've always been quite spiritual as a kid. I think that is what really got me through a lot is that connection in some way. But it was really that point where I was like, okay, I have to start making some changes here. This isn't working for me anymore. And so I started to really dive into like, I always had Gabrielle Bernstein's books
mhm,
and like a lot of spiritual books, personal development. That's when I really started to not just read the books, but really apply it to my life and do the inner work. And from there, I started to slow roll out like alcohol out of my life.
mhm,
And um, at the time, I was taking Adderall at the time, and I knew that I couldn't take that because it wasn't in alignment with this
mhm.
spiritual path that I was on. And so I really, I started to meditate. That's really it. I
Mhm.
started to meditate and really had to meditate every day. It was like my thing. And I was, ADHD, and for me, my ADHD came from an unregulated nervous system, anxious environment. It was very much environment based that caused me to like bounce
Mhm,
around and have difficulty concentrating. And it wasn't until I moved away from that environment I realized, oh, this was really just anxiety. This was really just trauma in
mhm.
my body. I was just sensitive to the environment. And so I started to, we kind of I moved away with my husband at the time. I mean, sorry, he was my boyfriend. Now he's my husband.
I'm like, husband at the time. I'm like, wait, I've only ever
Wait,
known you to be with this
how
one
many husbands
husband.
do you have?
Yeah. How many husbands?
I say he was my boyfriend at the time, moved away with him. And I really started, that's when I started to meditate and I really started to feel energies and felt like was connecting to something bigger. And I didn't know what it was, but that's what slowly, and then I moved to Vancouver. I was like really into yoga at the time. I was doing a lot of yoga teacher trainings. And I, at that point, completely disconnected from the corporate world. I knew that wasn't my path anymore. And actually, this is funny story. I don't know why I feel like sharing it, but I remember like thinking about leaving, and I Googled like billionaires who dropped out of college. And so there's like
Amazing.
a
Oh,
list of them, and I was like, yeah, that's it. They could do it, so can I. Anyways, and anyways, I just started reading books that really were helping me get onto my path. And I started to see a lot of psychics and intuitives and healers as a way to heal myself. And for me, I always dive into things. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just diving into it. And everybody kept saying, like, you're meant to be doing this work. You're really psychic. You're a channel. And like, this is the work you're meant to be doing. And so I kept having these divine um, interactions with people, of like these divine messengers, I call them, or like little divine interventions that really got me into this path. And then here I am. So yeah, it's a journey, and to move away from something that is so mainstream to so different is a
mhm,
process in itself. But that's kind of what led me down this path, is really that multiple awakenings and just knowing that, okay, I can't live my life in this ancient depressed state anymore.
mhm,
There's got to be something more for me here. I know that I'm
mhm,
not meant to be chained to a desk, and that's how I felt.
mhm.
But not to say like that's a really beautiful path for a lot of people, but it just wasn't the path for me.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, what was the most challenging part for you?
Ooh, from that specific time.
Yeah, like stepping into your gifts or your path. And I know sometimes it's more subtle and there isn't necessarily this, and I do have this question for you, if maybe there was this very pivotal moment where it was like, I can't anymore. Um, yeah.
I think it gets to this place where because for so long I was hiding it.
Mhm.
So, I would have crystal this is even before I was still, in that work line of work. I would have crystals with me. I would have spiritual books and I would hide them. I would even hide them in my own home. And there was just such a big part of me that was like not being shown, right? Or like not such a huge part of me.
Mhm.
And it just got to a place where I just like couldn't hide it anymore. I actually remember the pivotal moment. I remember I did an Instagram video sharing, like, this is what I'm doing now. This is my path. This is what I've been doing for a while. This is what I've been doing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is what I'm offering now. And still at that point, I remember sharing that video and having a complete ego crumbling after that, like freaking out. What did I do? I just came out of the spiritual closet. Everybody's gonna think I'm crazy. Like, I freaked out. It wasn't this like exciting moment, but I was like, I freaked out. I think that's what
Yeah.
happens a lot of times. Like, you think you're gonna do this thing out of your comfort zone and or you're gonna take a leap and it's gonna be this beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes it is, but sometimes you go through an ego crumbling afterwards when you do
Yeah.
something out of your comfort zone. And yeah, I just remember this moment of like, I have to do this. Like, I have to share this.
Mhm.
This is who I am. And from there, like, you lose relationships. There's people that may not be part of this new path, and that's okay. But I think even recently it's like there's been like further, like, more of like, I cannot turn this down. This is who I am. I am
Mhm.
a channel. I can't turn it off. This is
Mhm.
way too real for me. It's part of
Mhm.
my everyday life. The stuff that's coming through to me and in sessions are like, I can't deny it anymore. So
Mhm.
almost like don't even have a choice because it just becomes more integrated into who you are.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I relate to that so much. And yeah, I mean, part of why what I really want to talk to you about today is this idea of stepping out of the spiritual closet and like letting your world, your family, your friends, your community know, hey, I'm psychic. I'm a channel. I'm a medium. This is what I do. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, you touched on something really real as well, which is not everyone is going to be part of that path or understand or get it or be there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think eventually people may come around.
Hmm.
Some people, I don't know, some people are like, so I think now we're at such a great time in our earth, like where everybody's a little bit more of a like an
Open.
expanded, it's
Yeah.
not what it used to be. People are a
Hmm.
lot more open and are seeking these things now.
Yeah.
Whereas before it wasn't really like a thing. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I know. Yeah, exactly what you mean. Yeah,
I
totally.
feel like it's like pretty well received now. So it's a bit
Hmm.
different, but I feel like people are becoming more open to it. Or some people are just like, I think even like when I stopped drinking, that's another like
Hmm.
part where I lost a really close friend of mine that I thought we'd be friends forever. And that was one of the point, like one of the reasons why. It wasn't the reason why, but
Hmm.
start to open up to something more and your energy is more sensitive. So you pick up on things that you didn't really pick up on before. And that's okay because as your vibration rises, as you become more of your true self,
Hmm.
some people will fall away. Some people can't be part of this new path, and that's okay. Or they come back around, or that was just it. Like um, and some people will support you no matter what. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
so I think it just depends on the situation. And yeah, the awakening process in general, it's like you let go of things that aren't aligned with who you are, and you step into the truth of who you are, really.
Yeah. Can we talk about awakenings more for a second?
Yeah.
Because I do think that whatever word people want to use for awakenings, I think that is something that is what prompts people on this kind of path sometimes,
Mhm.
right? Of what does this mean? What is the greater meaning to this? What's really going on here? And they're starting to sense or tap into something that might even be really scary, or when you talk about that dark night of the soul. So I'd love to hear from you, like, what are awakenings, or what are signs or things people might be experiencing right now
Mhm.
where if they were to share it with you, you'd go, "Oh, that's an awakening. They're in an awakening." What would they be experiencing?
Oh my gosh. So here's the thing, there can be two kinds of awakenings. There can be a really beautiful awakening that can happen where you just have this connection to, your third eye opens most likely, and you have a greater connection to even like heart consciousness, and you're feeling more of your true self, and you just have that divine flow and inspiration. And there can be really beautiful awakenings to like your gifts or
Mhm,
your true self. But there are the reality of it, there's a lot of, challenging awakenings. It's like this process of death and rebirth, right? And shifting your identity. So it's like this old way of who I used to be isn't working anymore.
mhm,
Nothing's working, nothing's fitting. My life doesn't fit right now. And there's so many different signs of an awakening, but I wouldn't say I've just had one awakening.
mhm,
I've had many and multiple,
mhm,
and it's an ever growing and expanding thing. And
mhm,
really, it's a part of the healing process. So we are, maybe you go through a dark night of the soul, or things that you're on a path and then it suddenly shifts and you're not like that path's not there anymore, or things fall through. um
Sorry to interrupt you. Just
yeah,
just for listeners, tell us, like, what's a dark night of the soul?
yeah, I would say dark night of the soul is a moment where you go into perhaps like a low period.
Mhm,
You know what I mean? Like it could be like a low period. Maybe you're going through a period where you're very internal and it feels very dark, like you don't know the way out. You don't know when
mhm.
you'll see that sense of light again in a way that can be that way, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like depression or anxiety, or just something just doesn't feel right, and you're going through the shadows of yourself. So maybe you're facing parts of yourself that have been lying dormant and have you've pushed down are suddenly coming up all at once. And sometimes it can feel like everything comes up at once. And maybe you feel more like retreating and less, who you used to be, and just a
Mhm,
lifestyle change happens. So there's many different takes on dark night of the souls, but usually the traditional way is like you just feel like, there's a low period. You feel really things feel kind of dark. You're going through a dark time. You're going through something very challenging or intense. And that feels it can feel like there's no light, or there's no way out, but really you're on the path to
mhm,
awakening to something bigger. It's like this old life that you were living, this old way that you were living isn't who you really are. And so
mhm,
this dark period can come forward, we'll call it dark period, can come forward as a way to release what you are not and
mhm,
realign you with a higher path and who you really are supposed to be in this lifetime. And that can be challenging because you're going through an ego death. You're
mhm.
going through a death of who you used to be, and old identities are falling away that we used to cling on to or rely on. Maybe friendships end or relationships end, or you have something suddenly shift for you, and that can be all contribute to like a dark night of the soul.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing some examples of what people might be experiencing if they're going through that time, and to look even the reframe of like a dark time or dark period to looking at it as as an awakening. Like even that word holds a different frequency where we can look at it as, oh, maybe this isn't a quote unquote bad thing. And
It's
maybe
not.
maybe there's something on the other side of this for me.
Absolutely. There
Mhm.
always is. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. And so whenever there's a period of challenge or difficulty, or things aren't flowing the way you thought they were, that things are falling away, things are, you know, aren't exactly like you have something in place, and then things are falling through. And it's like, instead of seeing it as this like victim mentality of like, why me, why is this happening, and taking it out on everyone else, it's like that's your time to go inward and be like, oh, this is happening for me.
Mhm.
This is happening for my highest good. And eventually when you're on the other side of it, you're going to look back and be like, thank God I went through that.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. Along your journey of connecting with your truest, highest self, which is also this never ending journey throughout our lifetime as we continue to expand. Um, what helped you? What is there any particular books and
Mm.
did you have a mentor, or was it seeking lots of different, like how did you, yeah, what
Yeah,
helped
get on. What helped
you?
me? Yeah, I'd say like when obviously there's different stages of this. So
Mhm,
I would say if we're gonna peel it back to the beginning, um, I would say I okay, there's a few like books if we want to talk about books. I loved Gabrielle Bernstein's books at that time. Like I just found them so helpful. Untethered Soul. Do you know that book?
Mhm. Yeah, I have it on my nightstand right
Well,
now,
I tell
always.
everybody. We're
Yeah.
like first going through that like dark night of the
Yes.
soul anxiety or things are coming
Mhm,
up and um that is a book that I recommend to a lot of
mhm,
people because I remember that to be such a key book for me at the time.
mhm,
And another really key book for me at the time was Rebecca Campbell's Light is the New Black
mhm.
and
Oh, yeah.
Rises to
Yeah,
Rise. Like those
yeah.
two books, I remember I read those and it just like completely changed my life. So I'm trying to think of what else guided me with when it comes to like books, but those are like great, I think great starting points.
Mhm,
But when it came to for me, I think for me, I a lot of my when I'm going through something challenging or during that time, a lot of my journey is very internal. I feel like there's some people who are very external and have, a lot of help, but for me when I'm going through something, I that's when I tend to like retreat and I'm very internal about it. And I
mhm,
think that that's what needs to change within myself. Like it's like I need to start to ask people like for
mhm,
help and allow people in and trust someone. I think that that's what we need to do more of is like reaching out to people to help. But things like breath work and
mhm,
meditation changed my entire life, right? It's what got me on this path. And so I would say like meditation now, like sauna and cold plunging, like I love all that stuff.
mhm,
Breath work, I find, is one of the most powerful ways that you can completely shift your energy. And also, perhaps even like seeking an energy worker that you feel aligned with and you
mhm.
feel good with, not just anyone
Right.
but someone that feels good. These are all like different ways that you can guide you and help you on your path
Mhm,
of awakening. And so for me, it was really like having to go really inward for a while. And I broke away from like an old life that isn't me and friendships that weren't really reciprocal or really had my back. And I started to let go of those relationships that weren't really um meant to be part of this new life, or really when I looked back on it, it was like a really deep karmic lesson for me in these relationships, and where they weren't reciprocal or they didn't really have my back, or maybe they weren't like kind to me behind my back. Things
mhm,
like that are even family. I've had to let go of my family because it just is a source of trauma for me. And so sometimes that's not always the case for long term, but sometimes we have to go through that reevaluating your life of like, okay, if I'm seeing where I want to be, maybe I have an idea of where I want to go or an energy of how I want to feel. What in my current life isn't in alignment with that? And sometimes that's making hard decisions and really
mhm,
being honest with yourself, not only about other people on the external, but even yourself. Like, what things am I doing? What thoughts am I thinking? What beliefs do I have that aren't in alignment with this vision? And really like peeling back the layers and going inward and being really honest with yourself and others. And um, yeah, journaling and writing and don't be afraid to dive into those like shadows. Don't be afraid
mhm.
to dive into the inner caves that no one else gets, not everybody has to see that, but it's like don't be
Yeah.
afraid to go deep within yourself.
Mhm,
And on the flip side of this, I find that maybe some people listening to this might be already in this like healing journey or in that space, right? And I find that a lot of clients that come to me are obsessed in this like healing cycle. And it's an obsessive thing of like, what do I have to grieve next? What do I have to heal next? And sometimes the message is like, you've done enough. Like, why you keep diving back into this? You don't need to peel these layers anymore. Like, it's time for you to have some fun and shift your vibration. Like,
mhm.
connect back to that inner child and do things that you love to do because your vibration is low. So it's like now you just need to enjoy the path right now. You need to have some fun. So, you know what I mean?
I mean, those are some great words to live by, is like connecting with that joy and fun, which is really important. Something I share this with counseling clients and people in my life all the time is that we have the rest of our lives to heal. There's no rush. Like,
Yeah,
we're never not gonna be healing something. So, like, it's okay to pause. It's okay to put that on the shelf. Like, yeah, I think sometimes there is this striving to reach a destination that doesn't really exist. It's actually why we're here on Earth, or like
mhm.
sometimes I'll say Earth school. I don't say that to
Oh,
counseling
amazing.
clients. I don't
Yeah,
say that to counseling clients, but like
but it is.
this
Earth
is
is a
Earth
school.
school. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
Earth
our
is a
souls.
school. That's
Mhm,
what this planet is.
mhm,
And I completely agree with you. It's like this, why do you, and even trying to, you see it as, in counseling, you see it as whatever, whatever it is that they're healing. It's like we don't need, and I see it as like energy locked up in the body, perhaps
mhm,
even
mhm,
because I find that an emotion is really that energy that's been locked
mhm,
away. That if we can just stop attaching itself to what that thing was and just letting it be an
mhm,
energy that just wants to be released instead of being
mhm,
like, why is this happening? What is this? And like dissecting it. It's like
mhm,
sometimes there are things, it's like a layer. An onion
mhm,
is like, it's like a layer of the onion.
mhm.
Some layers aren't ready to be lifted and they don't need to be lifted right now.
Totally.
And some layers lift really quickly and easily. And sometimes we hold on to that layer for too long. And
Yeah.
it's just allowing it to be what it needs to be and having fun because that's really what we need to do, right? More of is like, it's been heavy for a lot of people for a few years.
Mhm,
Now we need to like lighten the load a little bit and have some
mhm.
fun.
Speaking of fun or lightening the load, I've asked you lots of questions about what's been the most challenging, what's dark night of the soul,
Yeah, yeah.
all that.
I'm here for it.
What's been the best, most rewarding part of your journey of stepping into your truth? What's been the best part about that for you?
Oh my gosh. It's like you think about like that's such a great question because it's like there's so many things now and it's like there's so much to be grateful for and like even just simple things like my daughter is hilarious. She's
Yeah.
3 years old and she's so funny and the stuff she's saying to me and like our connection, it's just hilarious. And she's constantly reminding me to be in that essence, that joy and that fun and play and creativity. And it's it's like little things like that are fun. I think she's hilarious. And I think that is in itself is like anytime I've gone through something when she's, in the past 3 years, she's always been this source of joy for me. And I truly feel like my life truly began when she came here and or like was born, let's say when she came here. And I just find like even just I don't know, there's just so many rewarding moments. I find when I'm connecting with a client and seeing their breakthrough or channeling for them and seeing the changes that they've made, that's also quite rewarding for me to see the changes people go through and the evolution. And I just feel like I'm at a really place where I'm really excited about like the things that I'm doing and the offerings and where I'm living and just yeah, I don't know. Did that answer the question? Like,
Yes, yes,
okay.
and I'm wondering if you could share any examples of stuff your daughter says, 'cause you obviously I follow you on Instagram, I see they're so funny, and I was just curious if anything's happened lately or that's top of mind that you could share.
Oh my God. Every day. Every day. Let me think of one thing. Oh my God. I actually have a document that I started writing up like funny things she says to me. Cause they're just
Okay, I have to tell you something really quickly.
okay, yes, let me hear. Try to think.
When I was younger, one year I got my dad a book for Christmas called My Quotable Kid so that he could write down the funny things I say. And I'm
That's
like,
hilarious.
that is what you need for your daughter.
Yeah, it's like I think people who are listening to this who are like parents or going to become parents, I think it's like writing down those little things your kids say because they're so funny. I'm just trying to think of one particular thing, and it's probably going to come to me later. Um, but I don't know, it's just like little things that she says to me, like I even like ask her if she wants some, if she can do something. She go, "Of course I can, mom." Like, or even like how honest they are.
Oh,
Okay.
so honest.
And,
So
uh,
honest.
or you read, it's like a struggle. It's like a power struggle with like a 3-year-old, and they're ultimately going to win because I'm obviously like a pushover in some ways, but it's like even like reading her negotiation skills. of like, "No, we're gonna read 3 books tonight." Like, "No, we're gonna read 1 book, no 3. 3 or I'm not playing with you." Right?
Oh my
Right?
gosh, I love
Just
that.
funny things, yeah.
Negotiating with a 3-year-old. That's
It
so
yeah,
funny.
it just doesn't work. They
Uh,
win every time.
but yes, no, you totally answered my question. Even in terms of hearing you talk about how rewarding it is for you to read for a client, I can only imagine. And I've, had readings with you, some of which have been very emotional and, transformational. And I think that also anyone who's really living and walking their truth, you connect with people, no matter what it is that you're doing. You
Mhm.
connect with people in a way that is transformational for both parties. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's, I think, where we're going, like, even, like, you're a counselor, but it's like the 2 energy it's like where we're moving to as a society is that less of, like, this, like, I'm the leader, you're the
Mhm.
student, you know what I mean?
Totally.
And I know you and I both have been in probably situations where that's been the case, especially coming no, yeah, coming from certain communities, but it's like we're moving away from this top-down way of being, even in, like, work
Mm,
environments. The most powerful work environments that are gonna really thrive are the ones that recognize that everybody has an opinion, right? Everybody
mhm,
has something to share with one another and that it is an exchange of information. And
mhm.
so, yeah, I don't know. That's just
Yeah, no,
mm,
I love it. And I think that when it comes to the idea of like teacher or whoever you're working with, I believe it's a relationship, and it's this even in counseling, like it's this mutual relationship where there isn't this hierarchy. And I always try to use words and language about like working together, because it's not that person working with me. It's like, well, no, 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 like we are working together. This is co-collaborative. And I'm slowly moving away from counseling.
yeah,
I'm going to share some offerings that people can work with me one-on-one, but not through the label of counseling.
yeah. I love
And
that.
and I even say in that, I'm like, this offering, what it really is it's a relationship between me and you, and the
Mhm.
rest unfolds. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because that's what it
You know what?
is.
I love that you're doing that because I've seen a few counselors recently and there's a very similar things coming through for a lot of people, but it's like this need to do things a completely different way than they've been done before and
Mhm,
shifting that dynamic in a way because I think there's just a new paradigm being birthed in that
mhm.
and some really cool things that I feel like are going to be coming down the pipeline from people like yourself and what people really need, you know,
Yeah.
versus what we're taught to do and letting that be part of it, I think is really important. But it's true, this transformation, it's like the people that, have the most success are the people that are willing to do the work. They're not just
Mm,
showing up and be like, "Tell me everything," and then go back to, like, no changes, right? There's just a cycle,
mhm,
nothing changes. It's like the most powerful transformations that happen are when someone's actually willing and ready to do the work or
mhm,
apply it to their everyday life, and that's when the biggest transformation comes because someone could come to you several times and just keep talking about the same thing, but then they're not
mhm,
evolving, they're not changing what's happening. So,
mhm,
I don't know, I feel like even in general, when we learn like soul lessons, it's like if it's the same thing, but it's
mhm,
coming through in a different, a
mhm.
different thing. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like it's the
Yes.
same problem, just a different environment or a different
Mhm.
label, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And it's like these are very, the similarities, but when we've really moved through something is that we've really closed that door on that thing that we keep coming up against, but it just has a different name for it. Do you know what I mean? Or a
Mhm,
different label. But underneath that energetic is the same thing that you're just constantly after.
mhm.
That's when we know we've really like closed that door, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. In the beginning there, I was smiling so big because I feel like you were literally just channeling my new offering, and it went out over email early this morning. And so like
Oh,
Jamie hasn't seen this.
I don't think I have your email. I should probably sign up for it. Go ahead.
Yes, please do. And so I know you haven't seen it yet because it just went out. And I
Yeah.
feel like you were really channeling it, because when you talk about like the old way of working not working anymore and we need to do things differently,
Yeah.
and that's exactly why I can't in some relationships work under the label of a counselor because I've gotten to that point of truth where I'm like, I have to listen to this. I can't, there's nothing else I can do anymore. I just have to do this. I don't
Yeah.
have a choice. And I don't mean that in a disempowering way. I mean in a way of like surrendering to this is the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I call those moments, because I feel like there's a lot happening of that right now,
Mhm.
where I'm calling them soul overriding moments,
Yes.
where we're on this path, but our soul is like, here we go. Or if you've been thinking about things and it's like, you're caught up in that waiting period. I'm just seeing a lot of like soul overriding moments where the soul drops in, is like, here we go, we're doing this. You don't have a choice. So I feel like there's a lot of that happening for a lot of people right now, are these
Yes.
soul overriding moments. And it's like, okay, you've been on this path. Enough is enough. We got to do this. We just got to do this thing. And that's what I'm
Totally.
calling this, like the soul overtakes you, your
Yeah.
ego, or that limitation that's holding you back in some way. And
Mhm.
it's because it's meant to happen now. So I always feel
Yeah.
like there's a divine timing to everything.
Yeah.
And we're coming up to a lot of those points on people's
Mhm.
path where it's divine time. Like it's time.
Yes.
You can't
Totally.
can't hold back anymore.
2024 was like there were so many particular months throughout 2024 for me where it was like a soul overriding month, I called it. And
Yeah.
even with this podcast, actually, I didn't have fear or doubt or limiting beliefs around starting a podcast. It was more so I don't really know if I want to like
Mhm.
deal with the production aspect of like it would just it was
I
just
get
me
it.
at the human level like not wanting to do it, and
Mhm.
my soul was like too fucking bad. Here we go. And I'm like, "Oh my God, here we go again." And it's just been like
Yeah.
2024. I feel like I get a month break and then it's like, "Here we go, Sam." And I'm like, "Ah," and here it
I
comes.
know, because
Yeah.
it takes, like, the ego a second to catch up, but I have a very similar, experience with, like, my podcast. It was just, like, it kept coming up, and I was like,
Yeah,
"I don't know, like, podcasting now, there's so many like,
I don't
I don't
want
know, it wasn't
to.
this, like, strong
Yeah.
thing," and then, it just kept coming up. And I was, like, getting this download, and then people would start to say it to me, and I'm like, "Alright, I'm just gonna do this thing. I'm gonna do it. I'll do it." And
Fine, I'm listening. Here we go.
yeah, and you
Yeah.
just, like, don't really have a choice, you just have to do it.
Yes. Very similar story over here with life as ceremony. Okay, I want to talk to you about intuition and like why is it important for everyone to connect with their intuition? Because not only is it like for you, intuition is like you are a channel and it's also part of your work and what you do. But as you and I have talked about, it's so important for anyone to connect with their intuition and connect with their truth. Um, how would you help someone just starting? And also tell us more about why. Like why is it important to connect with
Yeah,
your intuition and develop a relationship with it?
I'm just, like, so passionate about this because I really feel like, well, first of all, everybody's a channel, but not everybody's meant to, like, do readings. That's just not, or, whatever it may be, but
Mhm.
when I the importance of being able to access that within yourself, whether it be your higher self, whatever you feel comfortable with, source, anything outside of yourself or your highest aspect of self, your intuition, all of this is so important because we need to be using our gifts in our everyday life. We
Mhm.
need to become very aware of what our gifts are and how subtle and simple it is, and really following, we'll say, for more digestible, ways of people understanding, like, gut feelings. Everybody, like, talk that's a very common thing that people talk about in a work environment. You could be in a bank and your boss will say gut feeling. Like, that's intuition. So gut feelings are intuition. Although I don't feel like everybody has that. The gut isn't always where people process intuition. Sometimes the heart,
Mhm.
sometimes there's different energy centers that may be more activated. I don't know why I'm sharing that, but it just
Well, I found that really helpful actually.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Okay.
not always in the gut.
Hmm.
And so I think people need to know that, because they might be like, what's my gut feeling? And um, there's different centers where you might feel something or hear something, and a lot of times it's in the sound of our own voice when we hear something, like we hear something or we get a download. Some people say
Hmm.
it's usually comes in it sounds like your own voice that we speak to in our own heads. It can sometimes come through that, but and has a higher awareness, or maybe there's like an idea that comes through, it feels like out of nowhere. And
Mhm.
those are kind of like a download or a way of hearing. But we need to be using these in everyday life, right? And it's going to help the more that we discover our intuition, connect with it, connect, channel it, channel whatever you may be, your method, it's kind of all one really. But the more that we do that, the more that we can be really in alignment with our highest path and our truth and live that soul aligned way and make those decisions that are our soul's decisions that are part of our highest path. And it can really save us a lot of time and energy when we really tune in and connect with that. Because I can't tell you how many times there's been times where I'm about to go and do something that my body's screaming at me or something doesn't feel right,
Mhm.
but I'm, you know, people pleasing, or is something, there's an excitement around it, or it's a shiny object, and your intuition gets clouded, or not your intuition, through like excitement or what it may be, or this opportunity that may come your way, but there's
Yeah.
something that feels off about the person or the opportunity. And that's where we have to like release the shiny object around it and really, let don't let excitement override your decision making process, and really
Mhm.
connect with that intuition, because we can save ourselves a lot of time, headache, and deep, intense lessons when we listen to that.
Mhm.
Ultimately, the highest path will come in, but sometimes we are going through a lot when we ignore that. And
Mhm.
then you're like, oh, wait, I wish I told you so. You know what I mean? You hear those things, or it's like, oh, I wish I just listened because this is just getting progressively off. Or you know what I mean? But it's like really
Yeah.
following those nudges of your soul. Um, but like moving through, letting go of like the excitement or the people pleasing or worried about letting someone down, whatever it may be, and just like coming back and dropping into your body and your awareness and using that intuition, your body, as like a tool to get
Mhm.
you into what is your yes, what is your no. And the more that we follow that, the easier it gets.
Mhm.
But I do feel like there's people who are meant to write books. There's people who are meant to create. There's people who are meant to use these skills as a channel in your business.
Mhm.
Or you could be working in a bank, for example, but using that intuition and that channeling to help you make better decisions or guide you or come up with inspiration. So these are just things that we need to be using in our everyday life, because in business decisions, sometimes it may, again, that shiny object may come up, but there's something that doesn't feel right. And if we invest in that, then we lose a lot of money because we didn't follow our intuition, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if we just said no and just let it be and trust that something better is going to come your way, because the more that you say no to these tests, the more that you get
Yeah.
aligned and you can really follow and trust that. It's about trust. And so that's where we can save ourselves a lot of time and energy, is when we can really tune into that intuition and
Mhm.
trust what it's telling you.
Absolutely. And I hear so much around the body, that you keep referring back to the body and your body screaming at you, or what you feel in your gut or your heart or wherever it shows up, that to be in touch with your intuition is to also be listening to your body, listening to, listening to the voice, what you see, but also really in the body, listen to what you feel and allow that to guide you. Also, I wanna ask you something, like, on intuition, because we're
Yeah.
talking a lot about the no. We're talking a lot about when the body says no. What
Right.
Tell me more about intuition when the body says yes, because I know you and I actually both
Mm.
just moved recently, which was a
Yeah,
huge process of trust. Uh,
yeah,
so
huge.
tell me more about what it feels like, yes, in your body, or some experiences opposite of what we just talked about, basically.
Yeah, I think that, when it feels, it's like really tuning into what your yes is, what your
Mhm.
no is, sitting and asking your body that, asking yourself, asking your soul, whatever it may be, asking, and it's so personal from person to person, but like, what that yes is, because it
Yeah.
just feels like an expansive, it can often feel like this expansive, like, yes feeling. If it's outside of your comfort zone though, that's where it can get tricky, because maybe you're like, there's limitation, or you have limiting beliefs around that. And that's where we have to work through those limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
because maybe it's just your ego afraid of something, of stepping out of your comfort zone. But ultimately, you do know there's that feeling inside of you that just screams yes. It's like an opening. It's a yes. You can feel it in your body, like a lightness maybe that this is the path that you're meant to take or what you're meant to do. And it's like following that excitement because sometimes it can be exciting, but also scary at the same time. And
Mhm.
knowing that excitement and anxiety have a very similar frequency,
Mhm.
um, it just feels very expansive, I find. Yeses are like expansive, it's exciting, it feels like an aligned yes. You know what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two things. Well, one is because we're talking a lot about excitement, and I'm glad you brought awareness or just, highlighted for people that anxiety and excitement can feel very similar. And previously, when you talked about the shiny object, and
Mhm.
sometimes we have to let go of excitement, and then on the flip side, sometimes we have to follow excitement. And I think that's kind of what Jamie and I are getting at is that only you know your truth. And when is it coming from a place of ego? And when is it coming from a place of your soul, and not making either one of those things mean good, bad, right, or wrong, but which one do you want to follow, because that is going to lead you to your truth, your most authentic self, your highest path.
Yeah.
Can I ask about the move, and like that
Yeah.
felt like a big yes? Like what, yeah, tell me more about when that felt like a yes for you.
Oh my gosh. So, first of all, I feel like a lot of people are being called to leap a lot right now, especially in 2025. They're just seeing like leapfrogs. It's like leaping from one to the next, these stepping
Mhm.
stones, and more gets revealed with every stepping stone. And just one more thing I wanted to touch on is sometimes we're so used to taking in so many opinions, or the normal thing that we often do is when we're trying to make a decision or discover if something is right or wrong for us, we ask a million people or we consult people. Maybe even you're putting your dreams in the hands of someone else, and not everybody has the same dreams as you do, or maybe has the same expanded vision or mindset. Some people have very limited mindsets, some people have very unlimited mindsets. So you really just want to be mindful of that. And sometimes when you're the ultimate decision has to come from you and your heart. So again, um too many external opinions can really cloud our intuition as well. It can cause a little bit of confusion. But oh my gosh, the move. Well, it's so funny. I knew I had to move. I had been wanting to move for a really long time.
Mhm.
And then this is the funniest thing. It's like once we like took the leap and we're like, okay, we're not gonna move there, we're not gonna live here anymore. Or we like actually did the physical telling of like our landlord that we're gonna move in like a month or two. That's when like we fully let go. We knew oddly I wasn't being pulled to the island. I thought I was going to end up in the island because the ocean,
Mhm.
but something was pulling me inward and to be around the mountains and the lakes and feel like deserty feel here.
Mhm.
And so there's something that was pulling me here, and it's really this like soul pull,
Mhm.
right? You can't really it's just a knowing that you have to be somewhere. And the process of finding our place wasn't this like simple thing. We had a couple of shiny objects as well when we were looking for a place, and it got to a place because we literally once we found our place. This is crazy, but once we found our place, literally we moved 6 days after that.
Wow. So you had
Yeah,
nothing lined up and you're moving
nothing.
in 6 days.
Couldn't find anything. We had to be out of our place by the 15th. We were like, well, do we just settle? Like we knew we wanted to be in a home. I really wanted a yard. That was just so important to me. And I just had lived in a condo for a while, and it was just time to like have a yard. And so I always envisioned that. But the place that we were going to move was like this brand new build, shiny object, and it just something felt off. Like it was
Mm.
beautiful, but just something felt so off inside. And
Mhm.
that's where intuition comes in, right? Because had I done that, I'm sure it would have been a very different situation than how I am in now. But and then another like shiny object came as well, but it got us to where we were supposed to be. And once
So it
we
was,
found the place, it was like I got here, I found I was here, we were looking at it, and I saw all these little objects in the yard. Like my daughter loves making fairy gardens. We're obsessed with like spiral shells of like a
nice.
snail. We
Yeah.
found those heart-shaped rocks. Like there's something in like so many little signs around the
Mhm.
property that I was like, oh, this is where my family, this is where Nova wants to be. This is where our family is meant to be. And then because my ego wanted a brand new home, like, all the things, and this is an older home, but like my soul, and that's where like the ego comes in, is like, but you want this and that. But then you're like, oh wait, let me tune into where I actually want to be. And this was like exactly where we're supposed to be. And it just happened so quickly once it happened. But there
Amazing.
were, again, like, shiny objects, and we got to a place where we were under the wire,
Mhm.
pressure a time cooker with time, and that's when you can be really tested in your faith there, but you have to maintain that vision and trust and be able to say no to something that doesn't feel right and trust that you're gonna land. And
Yeah.
that is part of, like, the journey, it's part of the stress, the journey, the fun in following your intuition, because ultimately we were led here, and we're just this is exactly where we're supposed to be right now.
Amazing. Thanks
Mhm.
for sharing your
Yeah.
story with us about
Yeah.
moving and landing, and absolutely, like, I also, part of me is, like, not surprised that you were so tested, because for you, listening to your yes and your no is something you've been practicing for a long time, and it's gotten a lot easier for you, and I feel like this was like, "Let's push her a little bit more.
Oh oh my god.
Let's
Let's
push her.
see
Let's
how
see."
much
Yeah.
we can trust that she'll be moving. 'Cause I was like, "Are we not gonna move? Like, am I gonna, like, rot here? Because I can't stay here any longer. I
Yeah.
don't like it here." Yeah, so it was
Aw.
kind of a funny situation.
Aw.
But your faith gets tested when you're, like, in the process of something like that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I just have a couple final questions for you. Two,
Love it.
two left. And the last one, you'll see when we get there. It might be a yes, but it might also be a no.
Okay, okay.
But okay, so this podcast, like, life is ceremony, and when I would channel and tune in, because I was receiving the word ceremony many years ago, and I was like, what does that mean? And when I would channel, like, the word ceremony, or what that is it's a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. Ceremony is what brings us into a state of presence and connection. That's
Yeah.
the essence of ceremony. And with who you are and what you do, I can imagine when you are channeling, you have to be present and connected.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and you're welcome to use the word ceremony. You also don't have to, but ultimately my question is, what is ceremony for you? What is a practice, a ritual, a ceremony that you do that brings you into presence and connection? And if you could share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really beautiful because that's totally it. Like anything I do when it's channeling or with a client or even when I go to do my podcast, it's a
Mhm.
ceremony. There's a ritual behind it. There's
Mhm.
a place. I don't just hop. I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm forced to just hop on and do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But oftentimes it's a grounding into myself. It's, um, you know, taking a moment to connect with my heart and just letting go of anything that happened before or anything that's bothering me, because you do have to be so clear and present as a channel.
Mhm.
And so maybe there's a day where I'm, for example, extra in my head about something or whatever it may be, or something's bothering me. The practice beforehand will come, like, be a little bit longer. For example, like, I love going out in nature. I love
Mhm.
meditating in nature. And I find sometimes even just going and sitting by the lake and seeing this, like, I call it like my little spot there, because it just,
Mhm.
there's some sort of like higher connection that comes in and answers that always come in from the spot. And so even like getting out in nature is a ceremony. Going for walks with my daughter is a ceremony. Bringing your children into your ceremony, because so often
Mhm.
we use excuses like, why I don't have time because
Mhm.
of this. And it's like, well, you create time for it, or you bring in that sense of presence with your child if you don't have the option, right? And so for me, I don't always have the time as I used to, so my ceremonies, my rituals before having a
Yeah.
child versus now are a little bit different. But I love right now ceremonial grade cacao, or having a
Mhm.
warm drink, or making like a
Mhm.
fun little cacao drink for myself with mushrooms and things like that. And I love just taking a moment to being really present with that. And maybe I light a candle, I get a crystal, I have, sage or something, or Palo Santo that really, or essential oils that I bring into my practice. And I just really get quiet and I tune into my heart. And even just dropping out of your head and into your heart is enough,
Mhm.
because I feel like we need to simplify sometimes our practices.
Mhm.
Not as hard as it used to be able to connect, right? And
Yeah, I have a funny story for you about that.
okay, I love it. And yeah, just anything that really brings me into presence when it changes, and it should
Yeah.
change. It should change, and it can be it can flow with you in your life, right? We can't
Mhm.
just remain rigid into this worked for a period of time. Now we have to shift this ritual or ceremony into something else. But yeah, it's really just getting grounded, intention,
Mhm.
prayer before I go on,
Mhm.
um, getting centered in my heart and really calling back my energy and my light and my power and being in this present moment.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the ways I bring that into the life. But
Ah.
it's beautiful that you said bridge, because the first, I guess you could say, channeled experience without even knowing what that was. I was in a yoga class, yoga teacher training in California. And I started to feel this energy running through me, like something was going to overtake me and I was going to start speaking. And I got this whole download about how, like, I'm a bridge, I'm a bridge, I'm a bridge. So this
Mm.
word bridge, being a bridge, has
Mhm.
always followed me. And I just love that you shared that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. I think what you shared is beautiful as well about what is ceremony for you. And
Mhm.
you touched on something I think that's really important I want to share, which is that it can change,
Mhm.
like it can change, yeah, whether it's a nature walk or whatever it might be open to it changing. And also, it's going to be something that is true for you, like if crystals don't like crystals are not a really part of my practice at all anymore, and I don't feel called to work with them, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
And so I think that, really tuning into what is true for you. And even though we share examples on this podcast, I guess my invitation for listeners is to, you know, hear these examples and sit with the ideas of them and ask yourself what feels in alignment for you so that you're not doing something out of integrity, right?
Yeah. And even like, even not like remaining rigid in this. Like there's
Mhm.
like crystals are around me. I have them in my home, but I don't
Mhm.
always have them on me when I'm channeling. It's just
Mhm.
I'm just I'm connected. We don't need these things in order for us to
Totally.
be connected or create a ceremony, right? We don't need all the external. We can just come into our own. We are the crystals.
Yeah.
The crystals.
Yes, well, it is like we
Yeah.
are the medicine, and we all have our own brilliant and beautiful medicine within us, that we just need to connect with. And this is the quick funny thing I
I want
wanted
to
to
hear the funny story. Yeah. I
well,
was like,
it's
what's
not
that?
that funny. I always like hype something up by accident, but like, okay, you and I were sitting in a coffee shop one time, and I just have this imprint of you in my mind of when you were we were chatting about channeling and connecting, and you looked at me and you go, Sam, no, like it's so easy for you. It's like this, and you like pointed to like your head and your heart because you were trying to communicate with me that it wasn't like some elaborate ritual that I needed to do, and I think sometimes, years ago as well, I would be like trying to figure it out.
It's in your head. It's like sometimes when
And
I'm like guiding people through something, I'll be like,
yeah.
you're literally, I can see your energies in your head right now.
Yes. And I
Just
just remember you so bluntly said to me, you're like, Sam, like, there's nothing you need to do. Like, it's right there for you. It's easy. You're like, it's right here. And you kept pointing to your head and your heart, and you're sitting across from me at a coffee shop. But it was really powerful for me because you were right and you are right. And I think for me, it really is my breath, or sometimes but I mean, it's my breath, but
yeah.
I'm always breathing. Like for me, it doesn't need to be a breathwork thing, or even when I'm writing, like I'll often be channeling and I didn't
Yeah.
even know I was channeling. And then I
Yes.
would think of you at the coffee shop going, nah, Sam, it's like this. It's like this.
Think most people, like, they're already channeling. Like, we're really stepping to this place where we're walking channels.
Yes,
We take it all, I get the best downloads when, in the shower or when I'm on a drive, when I'm on a long drive. There's so much that comes through then. I love it. Or you can go on like a fun little adventure just asking yourself, like, what do I need to know today? Show me a sign. And then sometimes you can see the wildest synchronicities come to you as you're on a walk or you're driving down the highway and you're like,
totally.
oh yeah, there or the numbers or this there's a sign that pops up that says exactly what you need. And it's like it's so simple, and I share this with people who are like, "How do I connect?" or "How do I meditate even?" It's like, well, maybe right now there's too much energy in you, like you
Mhm,
can't settle. So
mhm,
maybe your meditation right now is going for a walk or
mhm.
running.
Yeah.
And it's because there's so much maybe emotion or energy in your body that needs to be cleared to
Mhm,
become a clearer channel. And so, what does that feel like when you're channeling, or when it's like when you're in that flow state, when you go
mhm,
for a walk or a run and you get that endorphins high and you just feel that connection to something bigger, or you feel clear,
mhm.
or your vibration shifts? Like these are, or you feel like an overwhelming sense of love. Like these are all signs that you are like connecting to something.
Yes, absolutely. It's so funny you mentioned driving because I'm driving the highway a lot these days being in Whistler. And like sometimes it'll just start coming to me and I'll realize
Mhm.
I'm talking to myself. And so then I'll
Yes.
just turn
Yes.
off my music or my podcast and I'll
Yeah.
just talk to myself, kind of wishing I could write down what was coming, hoping I'll remember later, but it is what it
Yeah.
is. And I'm
O
just,
or
yeah,
putting on your, voice
voice.
record then. That's the
Yes.
best thing you can do. I do that all the
Mm.
time. And even, like, for people, because I feel like a lot of people listen to a lot when they're driving or on a
Mhm,
walk. It's like, take a second to maybe go for a walk and don't listen to anything.
mhm,
Because
mhm,
sometimes there's information overload and we're not digesting the information or integrating it. So maybe sometimes it's less putting more on you and more tuning into presence and going for a
mhm.
walk and just being with yourself in nature without having to have something in.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay. Are you ready for my final question?
Yes.
And please know, listen to your yes and your no if this is a no. But I was wondering if you would be open to ending with a very mini channeled reading
Yeah.
for listeners, if there's any message coming through right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let me just take a
Okay.
quick sip of water.
Mhm,
It's like you say the quick channeled reading. I'm like, okay, I'll try. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll just share quick, and then it just doesn't end up being quick, but I'm gonna try.
okay.
Um, it's really interesting, and maybe it's because of you, because I feel like you have a lot of animal guides with you. Maybe it's just like the energy that you bring with people as well. But I'm seeing, and this doesn't happen for me personally, but I'm seeing like the image of different animals or different colors, and it looks to me like a peacock. And what I'm getting right now is this energy of really letting your true self, like whoever's listening, letting your true self come out,
Mhm,
because there is the real you wants to come out. The real authentic version of you is ready to be seen. It's like your authentic truth, your authentic code, your authentic path, your authentic expression. And there's parts of you that are incredible that you keep hidden or behind the scenes, or it's like hidden from the world, and the world wants to see that. So I feel like a lot of people who are either content creators, and this is also just those in other positions. It's not just that I'm going to have two different messages come through, but it's like what you want, this manifestation of what you're desiring or your next level, is going to come from you stepping in and letting this truth be shared with this world, letting this true self. So, the perfectionism, or if you have an online presence, or you're, even in the workplace or in everyday life too, it's like becoming visible is your unique edge. So, sharing
mhm,
what you're doing and who you are is your unique edge. So, this perfectionism of showing up as like how you think someone needs you to be, or how you used to be, and still perpetuating that person, it's like, and rather showing up as like, start sharing your authentic message of what needs to be shared right now. Because it's almost like there's these layers and veils around, and it's because it's like hidden and it can't be hidden any longer. So
mhm.
the more that we peel back the layers is the more that the people that are going to come in that are meant to find you, you're going to find your right people. So I feel like this next level, and this like what you really want, your manifestation, is going to come from you really showing your true self to people. And sharing, like speaking up, there's a lot around speaking up because it feels like even people who are in like positions where there's like meetings or they're meeting with, they have a boss, it's like your your unique ideas are being downloaded through you, and they need to be shared because that is going to be the thing potentially that drives this whole thing forward. But if you don't share it, if it's locked in, you're afraid to share that, then it's not going to move forward essentially, or it's not going to be the same as you sharing your opinion, because your opinion matters. You're stepping into your power really matters right now. And to remember that this process of like slowly sharing yourself with the world, it's a process.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be this like immediate tomorrow, I'm going to just, whatever. Let it be a process. But for some people, it does feel like there's a creation or something that you've been working towards and you haven't quite seen the results yet. They're saying,
Mhm.
like, just keep going because you're right there. Like, you're about to have a huge breakthrough. Like, what you want is about to be there, but it's like you just have to like hold it a little bit longer. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know when you're gonna air this, but like beginning of 2025, like before that even is like when this thing's gonna come through, but you just have to like hold the faith. It's their words that coming through is like don't quit before the miracle, because
Don't quit before the
you're
miracle.
right
Some
there.
words to live by. Don't quit before the miracle.
It's like
Yes.
just keep going a little bit longer, because like that hard work, that effort, the behind the scenes stuff that you've been literally doing that no one knows about, the divine knows, the universe knows about this. And so you just have to keep going because you're about to experience like a huge payoff, a huge reward, because your vision's been tested many times, but it's like you're just this creation. If it hasn't like reached the numbers or whatever it may be, whatever you're wanting from it, the manifestation or the thing you want to bring in so bad, it's like you just have to keep going. And I'm just getting this image of like, don't white knuckle the steering wheel. Like, let it go. Like, you've done enough. And so understand that you don't need to keep gripping on to the steering wheel. The thing's already driving, right? It's already in motion. And there's something about oh, what was it? Have that same level of assurance that what you want is coming, as if you would have, like, for example, I ordered a package in the mail. Supposed to be here last week, it didn't come. I know the package is going to come. Maybe it's going to come this week. Maybe it's going to come next week. It's going to come. I know it's coming. It's ordered. I pay for it. I'm just waiting. So like let that same assurance as if like something physical proof's going to come in,
Yes.
you know?
I
And so
no,
that's just
I just love all of this so much,
okay.
and it resonates with me a lot
Oh,
deeply
does it?
right now in this moment. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
very
Okay,
much
love that.
so. But I also, and you always say this, and I think it's so true, whenever people hear this, whenever you might be listening to this,
Yeah.
it's the exact moment in which you need to receive this message. Like, don't even check the date of this podcast. It doesn't matter. Like, whenever you're listening to this is
Yeah.
exactly when you're meant to receive this message.
And, like, bits, there's a few different layers of messages in that. So, like, maybe one message resonates, the
Mhm.
others don't. Like,
Mhm.
it's all good, but it just feels like 2025 is when a lot of these things that are, have been, like, kind of there's been delays this year, little
Yeah,
delays, and, like, you just can't get that thing for it just feels like there's a lot of green lights, coming. And
great.
so it just feels like it's like, don't like do anything crazy right now. Just keep going, keep focused right now.
Love it.
I have to share, like, when I channel, I sometimes it just comes through so quickly that I talk faster often. And I just have to share that because sometimes it's just this like rapid fire thing that comes through me.
It's okay. People are probably used to me talking, and on my solo episodes, it's like, did she speed the audio up? Like, what's happening here? So
Mhm,
don't
mhm.
worry. I'm sure if they listen to this podcast, they're already used to it. I talk fast lots. Okay, thank you so much for the channeled reading. Love it, appreciate it, and yeah, holding it in my heart resonates with me personally very deeply. And people can book a one-on-one reading with you if they'd like to, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. 30
Okay.
or 50-minute sessions so that you can just I feel like Instagram's the best place to
Mhm.
find people, or my
Yeah.
website as well. But if you go to, I mean, I'm assuming I always say
I'll link you in this episode.
Okay, sweet. That
Yeah.
works too. Thank you.
So I'll link your website and your Instagram so people can easily, yeah, find you.
Oh, perfect. There, that simplifies it. I don't have to spell out my name.
Jaime, that's
Yeah,
how
it's
you spell
I,
Jamie. Yeah,
okay? J-A-I.
Jaime. And, you also host your own podcast, The
Yes.
Magnetic Soul, which I will link as well.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanna share with listeners in terms of where they could find you or how they could work with you or yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the great landing page is like Instagram. I share a
Mhm,
lot on Instagram.
mhm.
And then there's a lot of group things that are going to be coming, group events coming in 2025. So really, really being called to bring people together. So that's I love group events. They're my favorite. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you can find everything really there.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jamie, for your time, your channeled reading, and all your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Sam. I love you.
I love you too.